a quick video to let you know about what's coming up for me this coming week, as well as a bit of an addendum to my video on Jungian archetypes last week. So on Wednesday, I'm flying to Telluride, Colorado for a conference called Intersect. It's focused on science and spirituality. It's being hosted by Christ's Church in Telluride. The pastor there, Patrick Bailey, is welcoming us, myself, a philosopher, the poet Drew Dellinger, the mathematical cosmologist Brian Swim, and the environmental ethicist John Hausdorfer. And we're going to be talking about this intersection between science and spirituality, and it's not going to be one of those discussions where we talk about how weird quantum physics is and just sort of amaze ourselves to death with the spooky action at a distance and whatever. It's going to be, I hope, more of a practical discussion where we acknowledge the spiritual vacuum that contemporary human beings find themselves in, where we also acknowledge the tremendous insight and the depth of knowledge that the scientific approach has provided to us, but at the same time recognizing that the technology that has been born out of a particular form of science, a particular worldview that has come out of science, has been destructive to the life systems of this planet. And it's my own point of view, an argument that I've been making for a while now, that this, to simplify it, this mechanistic view of nature is not adequate to the complexity of the Earth community, to the complexity of the cosmos and the evolutionary process that has generated it. And because we have this faulty view, the technology that has come out of that view has been tremendously destructive, right? So we like to think that the modern industrial era is just a continuous march of progress and life is getting better and better. And, when you take a certain narrow view and limit your metrics, it can appear that way. But if we take ecologists at their word, we're entering the sixth great mass extinction event, the first in 65 million years. It's human caused. Climate change, all the other issues we're facing right now are a result of a misfit between our claim or the understanding of increased technological mastery, a misfit between that self-understanding and the reality, which is a kind of blowback from the life systems of the planet, which we have been so degrading. We're undermining our capacity to continue to exist on this planet. And not only are we driving many other species into extinction, but we're at a place now where human civilization is threatened. So, that's the sort of context. And it's my belief that if the transformation that is needed of our species doesn't happen at a spiritual level, then it's not going to happen, right? This isn't just a new set of policies, more efficient energy. We really need to reimagine what it means to be a human being, what we value, what we think we're supposed to be doing here. Because the idea that the highest value is simply profit is tremendously short-sighted and myopic, and destructive, right? So how do we discover a new set of values that isn't the old form of religion, but that also doesn't just dismiss those value systems, but that also includes the evolutionary story that's been generated by the scientific perspective, but that also has an ethical dimension to it? So that's what we're going to be talking about next week, and all these talks will be recorded and available online. We have a videographer coming who's going to tell a story about our trip out there. So that's all in the works. And I want to also just return to my video on Jungian archetypes. There were some questions about the extent to which I was sort of proffering a relativist perspective, where, if the archetypes are evolving, it's as though anything goes, right? There are no foundational moral principles that can guide our human action. And if those moral principles, those archetypal sources aren't eternal, if they evolve, then there's no North Star, there's no criterion to determine a right from a wrong action. And, I want to unpack my own theology a little bit in 2 minutes or less by just saying that, I am a species of theist. I am a panentheist, which is kind of like pantheism, but also it's not just the idea that God is equivalent to nature. I see the divine as fully permeating the natural world, but there's some aspect of the divine which is remains withdrawn from that natural world. So God is in everything, God is in all things, and all things are in God, and God is a mystery that is beyond our ability ultimately to fully experience or understand. The natural world is also mysterious, but there's a degree to which I think we can continually deepen our understanding. Whereas there's something about the nature of the divine that, if we think we haven't grasped it, if we're looking for it outside, it's as though we are shining a flashlight in search of darkness. As Augustine said, and I paraphrase, it's like God is closer to myself than I am to myself. So the search for God, I think, on the one hand, it's a noble pursuit, and it helps orient us, but at the same time, that search will always leave us coming up empty-handed, because God is not out there. The universe is out there. We can study it and gain deeper and deeper understanding. The divine, it's closer to ourselves than we are to ourselves. So when I think about morality, I don't think that there is some eternal law or set of laws like the Ten Commandments or something that's true for all time, for all people in all places. That kind of old school morality is just oppressive and maladaptive, and does more harm than it does serve us as human beings. That said, I do think that the divine, in participating in the creative process that brings forth all that there is, has a certain aim, and my best understanding of that aim is that the universe is divinely inspired to tend toward beauty. And what is beauty? Beauty is the intensification of contrasts, and the maximum complexity of contrasts held in some deeper harmony, in some deeper unity. And that complexity is always evolving, because creativity is not something that reaches an end. It's ongoing. So the divine is continuously creating in us and around us. And it's tending towards beauty, tending towards harmony. But my view of the divine is not of a God that is omnipotent and that controls everything that happens. I'm a pluralist in the sense that I see the divine as participating with, co-creating with creatures like you and I, and non-human organisms and stars and galaxies. These are creatures, created by this cosmogenetic process that's divinely inspired, but who then can also have a say in the ongoing unfolding of this journey, this adventure. So God's not in control of the whole thing. God has aims, and God's power is the love that God inspires in creatures to be persuaded by this aim towards beauty, right? But it's a persuasive power. It's not a coercive power. Anyone who's read Whitehead, Alfred North Whitehead, or any process theology will hear the obvious resonances here. So, when we talk about the good, we're talking about what's ultimately, I think, an aesthetic lure. And God's not in control. God doesn't know what's going to happen next, right? God is as surprised by the evolutionary process as any of us might be. So that's my outlook. It doesn't mean that there isn't some divine baseline that we as human beings can try to resonate and should try to resonate with, right? I'm not a relativist in that sort of nihilistic sense. There are values intrinsic to the structure and dynamics of the universe that I think human beings need to attune to. But we're also free not to attune. And it's our errors that generate creative, adaptive advances that in the end may enhance the beauty of the universe. Because, what may appear to be evil from some perspective may actually be the breakthrough to a more intense and complex form of beauty. It may also degrade, it may actually truly be evil and degrade the complexity that's already been achieved, right? But we don't know in advance. So this is a very delicate, balancing act. Ethics is not easy. There's not a set of 10 commandments that tells us what to do in every situation. So yeah, just a bit of context there, I guess, in more like 7 or 8 minutes than 2 minutes, but if anyone's interested in dialoguing about this, perhaps we could get more into the details in some future video exchange. So yeah, thanks for listening.